Is resumed. It is time for questions to the Minister for Infrastructure, and I call Christopher Stalford.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Question number 1.
Gurmagad agus Nishiram Sarah Naira Infrastructure, Nichola Mallon. I now call Minister for Infrastructure.
As the House will be aware, I launched a public consultation on the 26th of July that closed on the 4th of October, the purpose of which was to seek the views of the public, businesses and elected representatives on a number of potential routes for BRT2. I'm pleased to say that the consultation attracted a very significant response, and my officials are currently considering the feedback received. As part of the public consultation process, my officials have met with a wide range of stakeholders, both virtually and in person. Specifically in relation to Armour Road businesses, my officials have engaged on a number of occasions, including a meeting organised by the Armour Road Traders Association on Friday the 1st of October 2021, a meeting organised by the Federation of Small Businesses on Friday the 12th of November 2021, and a meeting organised by Retail NI on Thursday the 20th of January. All of these meetings included representatives from Armour Road businesses. Following identification of a preferred route, further engagement with businesses and residents will be carried out throughout the detailed design process with a view to mitigating any detrimental impacts identified.
Mr Stalford for a supplementary.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to the Minister for her answer. I suppose my concern is that engagement with officials is one thing. What I would like, and I'm sure the Minister won't have any objection to this, I think it would be good for the Minister herself to come and meet with the business leaders and business owners on the Armour Road and see for herself just the sort of issues that they're raising. Again, this is asked not to score points, but in a friendly way that we can get Belfast Rapid Transit right. So if the Minister would be able to commit to that, if the Minister could commit to that, it would be much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And I have, on every occasion that my officials have engaged with the Armour Road businesses, received feedback on the issues and the concerns that have been raised. And as I say, my officials have again committed to meeting with the businesses along the road to discuss their concerns and any mitigations if that does prove to be the preferred route. I, of course, am happy to meet with the Armour Road businesses if there's additional information or issues that they haven't raised thus far with my officials.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the Minister's commitment to BRT, which could be transformational for South Belfast and indeed the north of the city, and I welcome her commitment to engagement and her department's engagement with Armour Road businesses. Can I ask, I'm delighted that she has committed that her department is going to reassess the case for extending the glider to Carryduff. That could be transformative for that community at the south of the city. Can I ask that she asks her department to look with favour, as it were, on that extension, because I think it's totally critical for the people and businesses of Carryduff.
The routes brought forward for public consultation were developed in collaboration with expert transport consultants, and they were considered to offer the optimal options for extension of the rapid transit network. The suggestions of extending the routes beyond the proposed endpoints, both in South Belfast and to Glengormley in North Belfast, were raised during the public consultation exercise, and I have asked the consultants to consider these matters further.
I call Paula Bradshaw.
And thank you, Minister, for the update this morning. During the adjournment debate that my colleague Christopher Stalford organised late last year, I raised the issue of the lack of transport infrastructure into Beaver Estate. Is that being considered as part of this consultation process? Thank you.
I thank the member for her question, and certainly if it was an issue that was raised within the public consultation process, it will be given consideration to by my officials.
Éireamh Carol Nichola, Fáinne Ceist, I call Carol Nichola.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your response in relation to South Belfast. But as you raised in relation to North Belfast, I wonder, would the Minister agree to meet the local MP, to hear the concerns of the residents and indeed the traders, to ensure that the rapid transit goes all the way through Glengormley Village and beyond Gormagat?
I thank the member for her question, and the public consultation exercise in terms of North Belfast is around 2 possible routes, and the member will be aware of that, the Antrim Road and the Shore Road. And there's also the important issue raised about further extension to Glengormley. As with the member of South Belfast, I am happy to meet with elected representatives and local businesses if there are additional or new issues that have emerged that they haven't already raised with my officials.
I call Steve Aiken.
I thank the Minister for her response so far. Would the Minister care to come with me out to Global Point in my wonderful constituency of South Antrim, because that's indeed where we would like to see the terminus of the glider that comes through North Belfast, either along through the Shore Road or other way. But we would be delighted if you would come with me and meet with the local business community and also the local council to discuss having Global Point as the terminus for the glider heading out to the north. Thank you.
Very conscious, Mr Deputy Speaker, that multiple meeting requests have been sought on the first oral question. I'm just wondering how many hours in the day I will have to agree to all these. Though, on a serious note, I am happy to consider representation. So if you wish to write to me in the first instance on that, I'll certainly give consideration to the matter.
Thanks. Sir Ciara Ferguson for Newcastle. I now call Ciara Ferguson.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Question 2.
Since coming into office, I made my commitment to rail connectivity across this island a priority. I recognise the lack of investment west of the Ban, and particularly how rail connectivity needed developed into the North West. That is why I commissioned a new feasibility study to get Phase 3 of the Derry to Coleraine rail line back on track. I'm pleased to confirm that the study is now complete and a business case is being produced so that this important project for the people of Derry and beyond can be progressed. I have also commissioned further studies to examine options of new halts and associated park and ride facilities at Strathfoyle, Eglinton, City of Derry Airport and Ballykelly. This study will also examine the possibility of introducing half-hourly services from Derry, and I am pressing my team to finalise this as quickly as possible so we can move forward. While the departmental budget for future years has not yet been agreed, I have outlined the significant investment needed over multiple years to both enhance our rail connectivity and our public transport network as a whole. I can assure the member that I will continue to seek funding for our public transport network with my executive colleagues, building on the momentum that the new award-winning North West Transport Hub has created to outline the clear role of public transport in helping to address the climate emergency, but also helping the executive to deliver on its other key priorities, including health, education and the economy.
Ceist Brescia, Ciara Ferguson. Supplementary question for Ciara Ferguson.
Thank you, Minister, for your update thus far. Minister, with regards to, you obviously mentioned the studies complete, the business plans complete and stuff, and you're looking at various halts. Would you have a timescale for that? We know how critical it is, particularly in relation to Phase 3 and the delivery of Phase 3. It's quite urgent. So if you had a deadline or any timescales for the Derry to Coleraine upgrade, it would be much appreciated.
Yes, in June 2020, I announced that the new feasibility study was required to get Phase 3 of the Coleraine to Derry rail line back on track, and I ring-fenced the required funding for this work to be done at pace. As I say, the feasibility study is now complete, and it has outlined various options for the redevelopment of this much-needed railway line. These options will now be taken forward and considered in a robust business case that will ensure that all future spend is fully informed and that there is a high-level assurances on the costs. The business case will be completed early this year, and I have instructed my officials to ensure construction begins thereafter at the earliest opportunity.
Mark Durkan, Hun Ceist call Mark Durkan.
Gurma Godelias Sean Colla August Buya Lesson Ira Fohanya Fragri Giji Shaw. Thank the Minister for her answers thus far. I thank her for recognising the underinvestment, or as we would say in Derry, neglect of the North West over so many years. Nowhere has that been more visible than in rail. Can the Minister update us on when the additional carriages might be rolled on to the Derry-Belfast line?
Yes, the member will know I invested £66 million in the purchase of 21 new train carriages, and this was to ensure that we would have longer trains facilitating passengers across our key routes. Derry is rightly identified as one of those, and the intention is that they would be into operation in the spring of this year.
I call George Robinson.
Mr Deputy Speaker. Mr Deputy Speaker, could the Minister give me any update on the Ballykelly halt, particularly the location of the much-needed halt?
Thank the member for his question, and Ballykelly is one of the 3 areas and locations that's been identified as part of the feasibility study for a new halt. Work is ongoing there and would hope to be in receipt of a report later this year, and then move to construction at the earliest opportunity, pending all of the statutory processes being completed and the funding available.
I call Steve Aiken.
Thank the Minister for her remarks so far, but obviously the Minister is fully aware of the railway line when it makes its way up there. One of the more important areas for development should be the halt at Ballymartin. Could the Minister give an undertaking that when she's looking at the feasibility studies for improving halts and rail connectivity, she looks first at something much closer and it has much more economic significance, particularly to the people at South Antrim and Ballymartin?
The member will know that, along with Minister Eamon Ryan, I launched the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review, the purpose of which is to look at existing rail connectivity to see where it could be improved, to look at how we can improve our rail connectivity in areas where it currently isn't present. Also to look at rail connectivity to our international gateways, so our ports and airports, and the role of rail in the transportation of freight. Certainly, if that issue has been raised during that consultation process, that will be given due consideration. But certainly, as Minister, I'm keen that we're doing everything that we can to maximise rail connectivity and making sure that it is convenient for passengers right across Northern Ireland.
Can we call Sinead Bradley on the screens, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 3.
As the member will know, as a keen campaigner on this issue, the Narrow Water Bridge project is a ministerial priority for me, as well as a key commitment in New Decade, New Approach. I'm pleased that I've been able to make progress, and working with the Irish Government, funding has been secured, and that working with partners and stakeholders, we're keen to see and are progressing on the delivery of this very important bridge. The bridge will be an iconic landmark that will increase connectivity and maximise the tourism potential for the cross-border region. On the 29th of June 2021, the Irish Government announced €3 million in funding from the Shared Island Fund to allow Louth County Council to advance the project to tender stage based on the 2012 design proposals. My officials are working closely with Louth County Council to complete the processes required to move to the tender stage as quickly as possible. I want to assure the member that I am determined that we work at pace so that this long-awaited, much-needed project moves from concept to reality as quickly as possible for the people of South Down. Subject to completing the necessary development and statutory processes, construction on the bridge could commence next year.
Ceist Brescia, ag Sinead Bradley. Supplementary question for Sinead Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for your answer. Minister, I want to thank you for certainly others talk the talk, and you have certainly walked the walk in terms of Narrow Water Bridge. And I'm conscious of our short mandate that's left, so I would ask the Minister, can you give an assurance that this project has been developed sufficiently within the Department to ensure that any incoming Minister will have a clear pathway to its completion? And I'd also ask the Minister if she could reference her good work around active travel and how that can be built around the bridge. And I won't miss the opportunity to wish the Minister happy St. Bridget's Day.
The same to yourself. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and happy St Bridget's Day to Sinead Bradley as well. If I deal with the active travel bit first, so this is a piece of work that my officials have been working on because we want to make sure that we're maximising the potential for the area. So as well as maximising the tour potential, making sure that we have good active travel opportunities for people as well. Not only is that good for the local economy and tourism, but it's good for people's health and well-being as well. In respect of the plans of a future Minister, I want to assure the member and the House that we have been working to advance all of the stages required as quickly as possible. But Narrow Water Bridge is an NDNA commitment. It is a five-party agreement, and so I would expect any future Minister to continue to work with the Irish Government, who is committed to funding the project, to ensure that we can see it finally delivered.
Sir, Sinead Ennis for Newcastle. I call Sinead Ennis for a question.
And I thank the Minister for her response. In respect of Narrow Water Bridge, it is a vital all-island project, and it is one that has strong cross-party political support, both north and south, and one that I've personally been seeking progress on for some time. In respect of the Minister's answer to the previous member, can the Minister give us some indication whether construction is set for 2023, or is there any possibility to perhaps advance that and bring it forward, because we know the huge boost that will bring to the local workforce and the local tourist economy as well? And also, would the Minister be in a position to give us some details on design? Will cycle lanes be separate from other vehicles and other traffic, for example? Thank you.
In respect of the design, the project is working off the 2012 design, so that will set out the cycling provision as well as the transport provision on that. In terms of the construction potentially commencing in 2023, I have to caveat that by saying that it has to follow all of the statutory processes, but I am confident that there's certainly a strong wind at the back of this project. We have the funding commitment there from the Irish Government, and so every effort is being made to ensure that we can get it to construction at the earliest opportunity, because of the value of the project as well. But as a member has rightly identified, it will bring employment opportunities to the local area as well, at a time when we're seeking to, expand our economic recovery from COVID.
I call William Irwin.
Question number 4, Mr. Speaker.
My department is intending to take forward a scheme for the resurfacing and widening of the A3 Portadown Road Armagh, starting at the climbing lane section from the Drummond Heights roundabout, heading out of Armagh and extending approximately 1.3 kilometres eastwards towards Portadown. The widening of the existing main trunk road to current design standards will improve safety by providing right-turning facilities into the Turnescobe, I hope I've pronounced that right, road, and a number of other access into residential properties. The scheme also incorporates substantial resurfacing and drainage improvements of the carriageway and installation of vehicle restraint systems where needed. The scheme tender documents are currently being prepared for procurement and will be advertised in the coming weeks. The scheme is programmed to be awarded and constructed during the 2022-23 financial year, subject, of course, to funding being made available.
William Irwin for a supplementary.
Thank you, and can I thank the Minister for her response in regard, and I welcome the fact that there is going to be a partial upgrade of that carriageway, even though it's only 1.3 kilometres, it's still a help. There are on the existing dualling, there's a couple of very dangerous turn-offs, and Turnescobe Road is one of them, so I welcome that fact. To my knowledge, I think that particular carriageway is one of the busiest single carriageways in Northern Ireland, and would the Minister agree with me that it's important that a wider upgrade is needed on that road in the future?
I'm not particularly familiar with the actual layout of the road, but as you say, I'm pleased to see that we are making some improvements. But as always, I press my officials to make sure that we're maximising our efforts in terms of improving our road network, with road safety as a key aspect and consideration within that.
And I hear him, Sir Cathal Boylan, for you cast. I call Cathal Boylan.
And could I welcome the news? But Minister, given the fact that there was no additional bids made in the January monitoring round for additional roadworks, and the fact that you've responded to me in writing about contracts will not be issued in the ABC area till at least May, could I ask you what measures you're taking to address some of the outstanding issues that we're still facing, the dire state of some of our roads? So what measures can the Minister introduce in the meantime to try and address those issues? Gormil Mogget.
I thank the member for his question, and as a long-standing member of the Infrastructure Committee, he will be very aware of the Barton report, which identified annual expenditure of £140 million at 2018, if I remember correctly, prices to maintain our road network. Obviously, allocations to the department have fallen significantly short of that year on year, and we do have a very concerning situation in terms of the road network in certain parts of the north. To try to address that, I have allocated the highest ever level of funding specifically to a rural roads initiative. So we have £17 million allocated this year to the Roads Recovery Fund, £15 million of which is specific to our rural rural roads. That's a 50% increase. The member will also know that emergency works are carried out, but I will continue to press at the Executive and with colleagues to ensure that we can get sufficient funding to maintain and improve our road network right across the north.
Mayor Justin McNulty han cast the cur. I call Justin McNulty.
Gurmai Ogut, Lash County and happy St Bridget's Day to you and to the Minister. Minister, fantastic news to hear of the widening and the resurfacing of the Armagh to Portadown A3 dual carriageway from Armagh towards Portadown. And the Chain of Scope Road you mentioned, the junction near which there is a house which requires a crash barrier. I hope that can be factored into the design of that road improvement works. And in terms of the traffic on that road, which is immense...
Does the member have a question?
Yes.
Please.
How will reducing traffic be improved by opening and reopening the Armagh-Portadown rail link, which has been factored into the rail review which you completed recently with Minister Ryan, and how will that hopefully...
Can I ask the member to bring his questioning close? Thank you.
Will that rail link be factored into roads, reduction of traffic on roads?
Members, resume a seat, please.
Obviously, in terms of the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review, it was looking at the rail network right across the island. And I have no doubt that I think we have over 7,000 online consultation responses alone to the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review public consultation, that the issue of Armagh and Portadown has been raised and will be given consideration. The member will also know that in addition to that, I offered part funding for a feasibility study into the Portadown Armagh link. My understanding is that the Council has appointed consultants and that it expects findings to be published in the spring.
I call Roy Beggs.
I would just like to follow up that by saying it is vital that there are rail links re-established. So, Minister, are you prioritising in your rail investment those rail routes which are relatively low-hanging fruit and which can be redeveloped at minimal cost, given that the existing rail bed is already in place?
Of course, all of these issues will be given consideration as part of the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review, because it's about setting out a strategic approach and an evidence-based approach to investment in our rail network. I have no doubt that the issues that the member described as low fruit will be given consideration as part of that and will be informed by the investment decisions that are made by Ministers North and South in terms of rail connectivity across the island.
Call Andrew Muir.
This House is currently debating a climate change bill. Can the Minister detail to me what impact she feels the climate change legislation under consideration will have upon new road building projects in Northern Ireland, and how would road safety be considered as part of that?
I'm sure the Minister realises it's not related to the specific question, but it's at the Minister's discretion whether to answer or not. Thank you.
Of course, there are two bills that are currently making their way through the House with differing targets, and that will have to be factored in. But there is no doubt that the climate crisis will significantly alter how we do business as a government. It will impact on where we invest and how we invest. It will require much greater investment in active travel infrastructure, much greater investment in our public transport network. I've laid out before to the House the actions that we're taking as a department in terms of the electric charging infrastructure as well. So certainly it will have an impact, and it will be one of the biggest challenges facing the new executive and parties right across this House.
Okay. I now call Keith Buchanan.
Speaker, question 5, please.
My department is not currently under any statutory obligation to carry out any dredging at the mouth of the River Blackwater. Any work undertaken or contributed to by my department would be on a purely discretionary basis and would need to demonstrate clear benefits for the community and value for money. That being said, my officials are investigating what my department would be in a position to do to facilitate progress with regards to this issue. To this end, officials have been engaging with key stakeholders on the subject of dredging the mouth of the River Blackwater, meeting them on the 10th of December and again on January the 27th. Conversations about what is required and how my department can assist are ongoing. This will need to be informed by preliminary investigative work such as the bathymetric and wildlife habitat surveys to determine specific requirements. I do recognise the importance of this river as a gateway to Lough Neagh, and I am keen to do what I can to address any specific barriers in relation to dredging, maintaining water levels and navigational markers that have been identified as impeding the loch's potential to contribute to the local community. My officials will continue to liaise closely with local stakeholders, and I have asked to be kept informed of progress as we seek to work together to further the aims of this project.
Supplementary for Keith Buchanan.
Thank you, and thanks, Minister, for answers so far. Minister, we heard earlier from Minister Poots, who referenced to Lough Neagh and Lough Neagh Rescue during a statement. Is the Minister aware that currently the Lough Neagh Rescue boat cannot go down the Black Water because it's approximately 450 millimetre of water, or a foot and a half in old money? Does this concern you? And are you content then to press on to solve this problem?
As I said, my officials have been meeting with stakeholders just last week to discuss ongoing discussions on a potential way forward. And I have also indicated that I'm willing to consider part funding suitable projects from my Blue-Green Infrastructure Fund should an appropriate business case for funding be forthcoming. So I want to assure the member that my officials will continue to closely engage. I will continue to closely follow it, and my offer stands in terms of potential funding from my Blue-Green Infrastructure Fund.
Iarnam Sir John O'Dowd for Honeycast. I call John O'Dowd.
Since my late great mother was called Bridget, I think it's only appropriate that I wish you all Bannaty na Fila Bridge a happy St Bridget's Day. Minister, in relation to Lough Neagh, I previously asked you questions in relation to Lough Neagh and the potential of Lough Neagh to increase tourism and the benefit people around the loch. You have committed to do what you can within your department to promote it. What has happened since, and will you commit today to meeting with the Lough Neagh Partnership to advance that goal?
My officials have had several meetings with the Lough Neagh Partnership in relation to the future management of Lough Neagh. These discussions with various stakeholders are continuing, including a meeting, as I've referenced, in late January. I'm clear that my officials will continue to engage with stakeholders to address any of the specific barriers in relation to dredging, maintaining water levels and navigational markers that have been identified, and also, again, to reiterate my offer of potential funding from my Blue-Green Fund. I think the issue here, and I have to be honest with members, is that the powers in respect of my department are limited when it comes to the Lough Neagh. It is in private ownership, but in saying that, I have engaged with Minister Poots on the issue, and my officials will continue to engage with stakeholders as well.
Daniel McCrossan for Newcastle. I call Daniel McCrossan.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Minister. Question 6, please.
There has been significant investment west of the Ban by my department. My department is investing in the construction of two very significant dualling schemes on the A6. The 15-kilometre Randalstown to Castledawson scheme, which was fully open to traffic in May 21, and the 25.5-kilometre Drumahoe and Dungiven scheme, which is very well advanced and on course to complete later this year. The most significant road scheme under development west of the Ban is the flagship A5 project, for which my department is working at pace on the publication of a new environmental statement addendum, and I remain fully committed to progressing this project as quickly as possible. There are a number of other strategic road infrastructure projects being developed by my department that are west of the Ban and include the A4 Enniskillen Southern Bypass, the A29 Cookstown Bypass, the A32 Omagh to Enniskillen Road Upgrade and the A2 Buncrana Road Improvement Scheme. In addition, my department continues to progress roads and active travel investment in these areas, which includes schemes on the Dublin Road and at O'Kane Park in Omagh, as well as a junction improvement scheme at Bells Park Road, Orchard Road near Strabane. The long-sought weight restriction through Clady has come into effect with the placing of signs this week. Flood alleviation schemes continue to progress, including engagement with our partner consultant to revisit the most recent flood study for Omagh Town, the feasibility study for the Strabane significant flood risk area, the design of proposed flood alleviation schemes for both Drumahoe and Eglinton, and my officials have also completed a feasibility study for the Derry City area. For transport, I have funded a number of projects west of the Ban since January 2020, including Phase 2 external works of the North West Transport Hub, replacement of the bearings for the Ban Bridge Coleraine and for the Ballerina Permanent Way Storage and Stabling Facility. This is also in addition to my investment in terms of zero-emission bus fleet in Derry, and there's also been significant investment in terms of our water and wastewater infrastructure.
Okay, that ends the period for listed questions. We will now move on to 15 minutes of topical questions, and I call Christopher Stalford.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Sir, the bus lane or the cycle lanes on Donegal Road, whilst well-intentioned, have not achieved the desired outcome. Because the road has been bollarded off, the trucks that clean the road can't get in to pick up the glass, and it's creating problems for cyclists. Will the Minister undertake a review of the practical outworking of this scheme?
My department has undertaken a review of the pop-up cycle lanes that were installed as part of our response to COVID, but I'm happy to pick up on the individual issues that the member has raised and come back to him in writing.
Supplementary question for Christopher Stalford.
And now pivoting to the other end of the constituency, the Minister will be aware that you have to wait roughly 30 to 45 minutes for a bus in the Beaver Estate, and they don't go directly into the centre of the town. Can I ask her to look carefully at this about improving the frequency and access of buses to the Beaver Estate?
Of course, the member will know that I'm very keen to expand our public transport network in terms of frequency and its extension to locations. Often these are an operational matter for TransLink, but if the member is content to write to me to provide further details, certainly I can pass that to TransLink, or he may wish to raise that with TransLink direct, and if necessary, come back to me afterwards.
Ceist Gurley O'Flynn. Question for Early O'Flynn.
Thank you, Alas Concolia. The Minister will be aware that a survey was carried out to assess the lands at the Hannistown Community Village at the end of 2020, and I'm just wondering if the Minister can provide any update on the available capital budget which might help in progressing this scheme. Thank you.
I thank the member for her question, and I met with members of the Community Association to discuss this with officials, and my officials subsequently attended a public meeting on the issue. I'm sure the member was there. I have made it clear to my officials that this needs to be progressed quickly. For me, this encapsulates a lot of what the Blue-Green Infrastructure Fund is about. I'm bewildered that it doesn't have a footway running through the village, and certainly I've made it clear to my officials that we need to be working hard to address that. There are a number of statutory processes that have to be completed, and the Community Association representative has written to me recently on the matter, and I hope to write to him to provide him with a further update.
Supplementary question for Early O'Flynn.
Yep, I'd like to thank the Minister very much for that detailed answer, and obviously there is a lot of health benefits around, what that footway will bring to that local community and the fact that they've went this long without one. But Minister, you had mentioned around a number of statutory processes that you now need to follow up on. Can the Minister give any sort of timeline as to when the footway could or may be delivered? Thank you.
I'm happy to provide detail in writing to the member. I've asked officials to do exactly that so that I can provide an informed response to the Community Association, so I'm happy to also provide you with the same information.
Joanne Bunting for a question.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. You'll be aware that it's now a number of months since MOT test centres have been open and operational, yet many are still waiting 2, 3 and 4 months to get an appointment. When does the Minister anticipate that these long waits will end?
The member will be aware that on the 26th of July the DVA reinstated normal vehicle test times, and this has increased capacity across the network of test centres. From the 1st of September to the 31st of December 2021, the DVA conducted 264,540 full vehicle tests, which is 8% more than the 5-year average for those months. As of the 31st of January, so yesterday, the DVA has confirmed that just over 55,000 vehicle test appointments were available across its network of centres up to the 31st of May 2022. The DVA has steadily increased its vehicle testing capacity by adopting a range of measures, including the recruitment of additional vehicle examiners, the use of overtime to provide cover for leave and sick absence, and a reduction of the vehicle test appointment time. The DVA is also offering vehicle test appointments on a Sunday and bank holidays at most test centres. Following conversion of an adjoining building at the new building's test centre, additional test capacity is now available to meet demand in the North West. The DVA is monitoring the applications received and tests carried out, and expect waiting times to reduce over time through the actions they have taken to increase vehicle testing capacity across the network.
Joanne Bunting for a supplementary.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Speaker. I note that the Minister didn't quite get to the detail of when she anticipates it will end, but I suppose now we're in a situation where people are going to face sanction because they're not able to tax their car because they can't MOT their car. So what's she doing to mitigate this?
So vehicle excise duty motor tax, as a member will know, is an accepted matter that's administered by the DVLA in Swansea on behalf of the Treasury. DVA in my department has no authority or influence over these matters, but we have been providing advice to customers who require an MOT to tax their vehicle and cannot secure a date before the MOT expires to book the earliest available appointment. Keep checking the booking system for an appointment before their MOT expires. If they get to within 5 days of their MOT expiry date, they should contact DVA Customer Services, and there's a dedicated email address for that. It's dva.customerservices@infrastructure-ni.gov.uk, and the DVA will do their best to secure an urgent appointment for their vehicle. I think it's important to point out, Mr Deputy Speaker, that to date all customers who have contacted the DVA in these circumstances have been offered an earlier appointment slot.
I call Harry Harvey for a question.
Mr Speaker, it's good to see the Minister here again after recent isolation. Potholes on our roads are a massive issue to road users, with reporting to our offices and staff on a regular basis. Could the Minister provide the House with a timeline of her recommendations from reporting a damaged road to completion of the repair? Thank you.
Thank you. The Department's current standards specify a range of response times for repair of road defects, and it depends on factors such as their severity and the volume of traffic on the road. So they range from 1 calendar day to be fixed for the most serious defects to periods of 5 working days and 4 weeks for less serious defects. If it becomes apparent that the relevant response time cannot be made, then my department has the option of installing signs to warn road users of a possible danger. But of course, officials on the ground endeavour to repair potholes as quickly as they can.
Mr Harvey for a supplementary.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, I'm just wondering if you managed to improve and indeed shorten this timeline since taking up your time in office, and would you say there's still room for improvement? Thank you.
There is always room for improvement, and this was one of the reasons behind increasing the funding to the Roads Recovery Fund and the Rural Roads Initiative as well, because I recognise that this is an issue, and I'm hopeful that in multi-year budgets going forward that we can review policies which were implemented as a result of historic underfunding of the department, but certainly I remain committed to doing what we can to fix potholes right across the north.
Iarmar Pachihan Funyakash, I call Pachihan.
Could the Minister tell us what she's doing to ensure public transport network?
Very supportive of the public transport network and has made many calls to see it expanded right across the north. He's right to point out the issue of efficiencies, and he may be aware that during the pandemic TransLink made savings of £20 million. I suppose the focus up to this point in time has been ensuring that we can maintain our existing public transport network given the dramatic reduction in passenger numbers. But of course I will continue to make the case, press TransLink to ensure that it is as efficient as possible, but also make the case at the Executive so that we can have investment to expand both our road and rail public transport networks.
Yes, Brescia, Pachihan, supplementary question for Pachihan.
Gurmagat Cion Corla agus Buegas Leishanara sub Fragrantian. Thank the Minister for her answer. Our public transport network is vital for connecting people, communities, and tackling social isolation. And TransLink received substantial COVID support funding of over £100 million in the years 2019. And there's an increase in the resource budget of between 14 and 15 million in the draft budget for next year. So could the Minister tell us if the Department of Infrastructure will prioritise public transport within its budget and to ensure no cuts happen on any vulnerable services, particularly those in remote rural areas?
I thank the member for his question, and Translink was allocated significant funding during the pandemic, but when it compares to the funding that was provided to transport in England, Scotland, Wales and the South, it fell short. It's actually at the bottom of that table. But of course, in my department, while I'm the Minister, I'm clear that I will continue to prioritise public transport. I suppose the difficulty that we will have is that our ambition to expand it will be curtailed if sufficient allocation isn't brought across to the department. But I, of course, will continue to make that case, and I hope other parties join me in that endeavour.
Call Robbie Butler for a question.
Deputy Speaker, thank you, Minister. I wrote to your department, I think in April of last year, with regard to a pathway, a footway in Lagan Valley, which runs adjacent to Laurel Hill School. It's heavily used by pedestrians. Could you give me maybe an update of any considerations that has been made in regards to that?
I don't have the specific details of that particular request, but what I am happy to do is to go back to officials and to ask them to assess that and to provide you with an update in writing.
Supplementary for Mr Butler.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. With regard to the initial request, it was on the back of an assault that was made on a jogger. The pathway is used profusely. In fact, it's the preferred pathway as opposed to the public pathway. But under the active travel scheme, would it be something perhaps where the funding may be found? And I know that a lot of cyclists and stuff, I don't know your priority with regard to that active travel scheme. Perhaps that's an avenue that might be worthwhile pursuing.
Well, certainly one of the objectives of the Blue-Green Infrastructure Fund is to ensure that we can have much better active travel facilities for citizens, active travel that is safe, but also where more people are encouraged to use it. So certainly from a policy perspective, it would fit with the fund. What we have been doing is working with local councils rather than impose change on high. We've been asking local councils to identify active travel schemes that they could bring forward for funding from the Blue-Green Infrastructure Fund. I'm sure you'll make representations, if you haven't already done so, to your local council, but I will speak to our active travel branch as well.
Carol Nichola for I call Carol Nichola for a question.
And I know this is something very close to the Minister's heart, but could she give us an update on the suicide prevention infrastructure structures, such as you're talking about putting on the bridges in North Belfast, looking at Westlink and others?
I thank the member for her question, and this is a really important issue right across the north, but particularly in the constituency of North Belfast. In terms of this particular project, my department, through its consultant partner, has completed initial design work for suicide prevention barriers for the pilot sites at Divis and Clifton Road bridges. The department is currently commissioning test panels on the material, and once this work has been completed and assessed, the current schedule is that installation works will commence by the summer of this year. I want to assure the member that this remains a priority for me, so I will continue to push to ensure that we can get progress made as quickly as possible.
I
appreciate the response that the Minister's given, and it is completely appropriate that you look at the areas of West Belfast and North Belfast, regrettably two areas that have suffered disproportionately for people through suicide. But the Minister will be aware, even within her own constituency capacity as an MLA, that there are other bridges where there have been several attempts in our constituency, looking at Hightown and Arthur Bridge and others. So perhaps if the Minister could even provide me an update in writing regarding those, I'd appreciate it. Gormagat.
And that is an extremely important issue that the member raises. I would like to, first of all, I don't think that the infrastructure that has been built was the right type of infrastructure in the first instance, and I think action should have been taken before this. I suppose the challenge here has been piloting to make sure that it works, so that if it is proven to work and achieves those objectives and acts as a deterrent, then we can roll that out in other areas. So the focus has been on making sure that we get the pilot right, we know what works, and then we can hopefully see that rolled out to other locations.
Time for a very brief question from William Irwin.
Mr Deputy Speaker, and can I ask the Minister how much extra funding was allocated to her department in the latest monitoring round, and how much of that is going to be earmarked for the very bad state of rural roads?
thank the member for his question. From memory, I think I was allocated £56 million in January monitoring resource, 3.6 or 3.8 for the A5. Subsequent to that, I have made additional bids that is under consideration by the Finance Minister and the wider Executive. In respect of January monitoring and roads, given the legal challenges that have come into play, it hasn't been possible at this late stage to make an additional capital bid for roads. We did do that during the year. Unfortunately, not all were successful, but given we're at such a late stage in the financial year, it hasn't proved possible this time round. But of course, I've asked my officials to continue to review that to ensure that where we can, we are making bids and we are doing what we can to maximise the effort that's being made on our roads.
Okay, members, time's up. If we just take our ease till we move to the next item of business again. Thank you.